All right. Next up, we've got Team 2. They're called Team Prakriti. They are represented by individuals from Ireland and India. And we've got Ruchir and Ariman on.
Greetings, honorable judges and esteemed assembly. So I am Ruchir Sharma and my co-presenter Ariman are here from Team Prakriti. Well, the name seems complex, but as is the nature of the problem that we are going to discuss here. So over to Ariman.
Yes, you must have heard about Maldives, Hawaii, Bali, and other islands. But this, Henderson Island, despite being a World Heritage by UNESCO and untouched by humans, has lost its pristine glory due to the seemingly innocuous activities of mankind. The numbers speak for themselves. 5 trillion, 5 trillion pieces in the ocean layers, 51 new species being negatively affected every year, and 322 metric tons of plastic being produced. With the proxy method being used for survey and mapping of debris, we realized that we had to first quantify the threats of plastic on Henderson Island. So building upon these numbers, we now establish a problem at hand. And we have created some visualizations using the Tableau software to pragmatically analyze the situation and prevent its further aggravation. So here we lay out our objectives. The first one, quantification and risk assessment for the debris being washed up. Second, protection and preservation of the endemic flora and fauna. And third, reduction of debris by cleaning up the islands. Only if we adopt these far-reaching system changes, we can reduce plastic pollution by 80% by 2040. So we were provided with data sets to give us a head start. We used 2 data sets, Henderson Island data, which had 4 tables, meta, all, mass, beach pack. And we primarily used tables all and mass to explore things like categories, items, number of occurrences, etc. The second data set that we used was BirdLife International data to discover any threats to Henderson endemic birds and also to hypothesize one problem that I will discuss later. So to validate our findings drawn from the data about waste accumulation on Henderson Island and the major sources of these pollutants, the Global Plastic Navigator from World WWF was very helpful. The countries marked with orange region have poor plastic disposal, and so plastic from these countries travel along the oceanic currents and reach Henderson Island in the South Pacific Gyre. So using Tableau and Henderson Island dataset, this is we created these visualizations. The first one, the bar on the left, is divided into beaches along north and east shoreline with the amounts of washed up debris. Each gets classified on the basis of size as macro and micro. And the final classification is based upon the constituents of debris like glass, foam, plastic, etc. And as we can see here, plastic being the most of it. The second visualization shows the colors of plastic items that make it an integral part of our hypothesis that I now present to you. Along with rats being a cause of worry, we propose that birds get attracted by red and white plastic fragments, feed on them, get entangled in them, which eventually will lead to genetic alterations and population decline of these birds. Here in this chart, we see the categories of plastic items. It comprises of fragments, fishing gear, and ghost nets. That gives us a hint about the improper conduct and waste management in fishing industry. And in this final chart, it represents the mass of the plastic debris on the island by region. Now back to you, Ruchir.
Well, feasibility, transparency, and fiscal prudence are the 3 pillars on which our solutions are premised. When we talk about plastic pollution, circular economy is often talked about. So we have short-term solutions, mid-term solutions, and long-term solutions ingrained in the 4 spokes of the circular economy. We have SPEAR 3, our central ideology that stands for substitute, prevent, eliminate, adopt, reduce, reuse, and recycle. So let's move to the short-term goals. Now, as Ariman told you about the birds and they getting entangled from the different colors, we propose a nature neutral plastic color that comes at almost 0 additional cost. Well, all the countries and all the production units just needs to shift gear and change the color to blue so that they can be protected. Now, another thing that we have come up with is a web application with a novel feature that we have called iPledge. The iPledge feature helps with donations, with petitions, and that can be extended to a discussion forum. Well, to spread awareness about the data and about the visualizations, we are looking to collaborate with United Nations and search engines like Bing and Google. Advertising and publicizing through social media is an integral part, and therefore we look up to collaboration with environmentalists and UN ambassadors. So now here is a demonstration of our web application. So this is our web application with an overview. Then for a layman person, here are our data analysis and visualizations, which is then followed by a one-stop solution for all the media articles, news, and blogs about Henderson Island. Then we have our solutions ingrained in it. And finally, if you wish to support us with any pledge, you could take a pledge with us towards protection, and you could support our campaign via donation. Now let's move to the medium-term solutions. So as one of the most important thing is the paucity of data. Paucity of our the current proxy methods are not reliable enough, and so encouraged by the UK Plymouth Marine Lab experiments, we propose that satellite imaging detection needs to be used in the South Pacific Ocean in order to identify, and as also validated by the data, the majority of the amount of the macro particles that can be detected by satellite imaging. Another thing that we propose is to redefine the ERMs and AOPs by separate panels into simple tiered structure, so that we can have a comprehensive review of what are the effects of plastic on wildlife and what are the effects of the constituents of plastic, the chemicals involved on wildlife. Another thing that we have come up with is an NV mark, a global eco marking that is differentiates an object into biodegradable or a non-biodegradable biodegradable product, along with the number of years that it takes to decay. Well, this would lead to a demand-driven or a consumer-driven campaign, and it would force the suppliers to produce more of biodegradable goods than non-biodegradable. Now, coming to long-term solution, we are looking that each and every penny of the revenue that we generate through our website, whether it is through ads or through the volunteered crypto mining or through the donations that we get, that would be used to train and skill the people who live near the Henderson Island, that is like Tahiti Islands, so that like they could clean, they could survey, map, perform several experiments on these islands and help us. Now, another thing is that in the longer run, we look these things to be incorporated in the Ocean Plastic Charter. And finally, we wish that we'll be launching more campaigns like a completely plastic-free Olympic by 2032 in upcoming future. Now, what are the benefits? For environmental benefits, we believe that only by the nature neutral plastic color that we have advocated for, that would help us in increasing the population of the endemic birds by 10 to 15%. The proposed NV mark, if that is implemented in all those countries that are a major source of pollution to the Henderson Island, that would reduce the amount incoming, the debris incoming, by about 1.89 to 4.72 items per meter. And finally, that it is estimated that by 2030, about 213 million tons would be discarded, and about 10% of that would be in ocean. So satellite imaging would be best to help us get enhanced data so that we could get towards better policy formulation. Finally, about the societal benefits, the climate change has shortened our lifespan by 10 to 12 years. Well, we cannot undo it, but we can stop it then and there. The citizens of Tahiti who profess farming, agriculture, and tourism have been hit hard by the catastrophic effects of coronavirus. Well, we are looking forward to empowering them via our skill training program and providing them alternate employability. So this is our roadmap from a poor state Henderson Island to a better state Henderson Island, and we are open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Judges, open to questions. Judges, did you have any questions for us? Sounds like that was a very thorough presentation on your part. Was there anything you wanted to highlight to us that users might have in their minds, Richard, around the data that you looked at? David Pogue said he's never heard of the concept of choosing plastic color to avoid ingestion by wildlife. And so his question was, is that your idea or has it been proposed previously?
Yes. So it was our idea as we saw the data, and we had some papers that we looked into, research papers that previous researchers have experimented and noticed that birds are certainly attracted to some bright colors and also to color white. And on the Henderson Island, there are small fragments that birds actually ingest and which can eventually lead to there. So this was actually our finding that maybe changing to some color, other color can prevent them from feeding on these plastic fragments.
It's just that a greater wavelength of light actually attracts them more. And as Ariman said, that this leads to convulsions, and therefore we are proposing this kind of thing.
Okay. And as a global labeling system, what agency will implement?
That's an interesting point. And as we said, that NVMark is something that we look initially in, we look to implement it in phases. So if we look like it, like we have different, if we look at national levels, we have different organizations. For India, we have the Bureau of Indian Standards. For America, we have other things. So what we could do is we could start at national level. We could start at national accreditation organizations. And when, after a few test runs, we could lay it out, we could plan it out at a global level. And I guess that ISO would be better, and we have to make it more compliant. And I guess moral suasion was also help us to implement these kinds of things.
Okay. One of the judges said, looks great. Any plans beyond Henderson Island? How could you scale up to other areas, and what areas would you look at? I think this is just a reiteration, I think, of some of the data that you provided previously, but it would be good to provide.
Yeah. So as we were looking out and as we were researching, so we got quite a lot of areas that had a quite high density of the debris that was deposited on the coast or the embayment area per se. An interesting thing that we came across when we were looking at the Global Plastic Navigator was that there is a North Pacific gyre that is actually known as the garbage patch, and we do have a lot of things to look at about. So once we implement this at Henderson Island, we could simply look at even if you look at the purple and the orange map that we provided, a darker purple area at the North Pacific Ocean was visible, which is the garbage patch. So we also look to ponder upon and like implement our solutions over there.
Okay. And just one last question. Could you say more on how you related the birds and plastic data sets? What types of other data would you have liked to have?
Yes, so for understanding the birds species on Henderson Island, we basically used BirdLife International dataset, and that was basically a web application where everything was laid out in very easy terms in a textual format and also a detailed tabular information. And from there, we realized that birds, the endemic bird species of Henderson Island are currently vulnerable. And rats were the primary cause, but also seeing the studies from publicly available research papers, we found that actually many seabirds and aquatic birds were ingesting plastic, and almost many of them have a lot of plastic amounts in their body, and which has been leading to relating it to their wing length and beak's length. So we believe that it is could be a genetic deformation because of plastic. But as of this time, the data is very less, and we would like more like research being used and more data set can be available so that a clear picture can be painted.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you so much. I think that's definitely generated a ton of questions from the judges. So much appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.